Hey everyone, what's going on? This is Patreon supporter and Canadian national champion Tarek Patel, and you are watching Instant Speed Podcast on 983 Media.
This is the Instant Speed Podcast, episode number 83. Our guest today is Tommy Fresh of Fresh and Buds. And this is always brought to you by Kayfabe Cards. Go to kayfabecards.com. Let's hit the news before we get to the discussion, my friends. And hey, the Calling in Antwerp is going on this weekend. That's May 19th to 21st. I know a bunch of friends of mine are going to be there, so you want to check it out. I believe it'll be broadcast. I'm not sure where, but keep an eye on fabtcg.com and at fabtcg on Twitter. I'm sure they'll let you know precisely how to tune in, but keep in mind it's a calling, so it's a big one. Next, we've got some leaks from the new Dusk Till Dawn expansion as the new Armory kits are out. Yes, the new Armory kits are out, and they bring along some wonderful friends like the Flail of Agony and the Banshee. Some new cards are going to be part of the, the prize structure of the Armory kit. So you want to make sure that if you want to get your hands on these cards before they're released, get to your local Armory, go to fabtcg.com/events and check out what's going on near you. Those will be available in June. Nationals are announced. The national season is out there, and I will tell you this: Canada, September 9th through the 10th, in my hometown of Toronto, which is great to hear. And I'm not going to tell you all the dates because there's so many of them. You can go to fabtcg.com/events or check out Organized Play. You'll see where all the dates are. One thing to note is that the USA is to be determined. We don't know where or when that'll be, but I chose Canada to let you know because I'm Canadian. And too bad. All right, this weekend, friends, I will be in Buffalo, New York because of something called Battle Lake Frigid. WNY Gaming is teaming up with the Mana Bar as well as Realm Gaming to put together one hell of an RTN weekend, starting with a Super Armory on Friday, which I will be playing in, and then followed up with two back-to-back RTNs that are going to be happening at WNY Gaming. You can go to battlelakefrigid.com to get details. I will be casting this weekend. I can't wait, as well as some cool stuff. There's going to be an Eye of Ophidia giveaway at the door. There's going to be some alpha product that is going to be opened and dealt with. So you definitely want to check that out. So go to battlelakefrigid.com. All right, we welcome Tommy Fresh, one of my closest friends, because we want to tackle a very important subject. That would be mental health as it relates to card gaming and content creation. I think it's a very important discussion. We dig into that and more with Tommy Fresh on ISP. This episode of Instant Speed Podcast is brought to you by Kayfabe Cards. Located in Utah, Kayfabe Cards is a smart choice for all of your flesh and blood needs. Prepare for the battles you'll face through the world of Wraith by gearing up at kayfabecards.com. That's kayfabecards.com and get all of the cards shipped directly to your door. Hey, if Magic or Pokemon is your jam, they've got you covered. Kayfabe Cards has a plethora of TCG options, sealed products, and singles to keep you collecting and keep you competitive. Kayfabe Cards, be who you want to be. The Instant Speed Podcast welcomes back the host of Fresh and Buds, very delightfully known as Thomas Von Freshness. Now, have you gotten that name officially changed yet?
You see, here in America, things kind of take a little bit longer than I don't know. I don't know what goes on up there, Canada. I've said it many times whenever I've been on the show, but Canada is a different beast, and things down here just take a little bit longer. But we're working on it, and
But are you working on it? Are you working on it? No, that's it. See, that's the American dream that I know. That's the American way, which is we'll talk about it. We'll say that it's on the radar. Then we'll do absolutely nothing about it. That's what I wanted to hear. So,
well, it's our grandchildren's problem. I've always said.
Yeah, well, we're running out of we're running out of runway here on the on planet Earth, as it would be. You guys keep kicking the can down the road, and I think that we're at a point now where ultimately, who knows? I ain't having kids. I don't want to leave them. I don't want to leave them all this stuff. Like, no offense. No.
Well, I gotta say, I mean, the question "who knows" comes up a lot, right? And it's certainly not me. And it's I don't think it's you either, Matt. So, but I am
Yeah.
happy to be here. Instance B is one of my favorite podcasts that I listen to religiously every week, just like you do for Flesh and Pod. And
I was waiting.
I'm just
I was waiting for that, and just to sort of pull the veil back on multiple things here, Tommy. I think I tell you that I love you easily on the weekly. Could it be that I say that?
yeah, I get the message every once in a while. I'm like, oh well,
Wow. Okay.
that
Well,
he's
it's
had a bit too much tonight, but
left on red. It's all good. But yeah, I'll be completely candid here. I mean, there's like a 407 podcasts regarding Flesh and Blood, of which I religiously listen to Flesh and Pod because Derek and Logan are like brothers to me. They're within this community. They're like my family. Not that you're not. I just sometimes I don't get to listen to yours as religiously as you put it. I'm an atheist. I can't use terms like religiously and
for sure.
come out with some sort of positive context out of it. But there was that incident at the end of Pro Tour. Would you like to regale us? Because
actually, I would love to recount that. And you actually told the story when you had Derek and Logan on, but I'm sitting there kind of waiting for things to kind of wrap up because we're all going to have dinner. You know, it's nice. We're going to just hang out. It's the end of Pro Tour Baltimore. It was a wonderful weekend. And, I'm excited to get some Flake time. I'm excited to get some Logan and Derek time. And, you start chatting with this guy named James White, I think it was.
It's pronounced White.
White. I always call him Jimmy Blanco, but I'm sure he does not like that. But and you're chatting with them, and you introduce Logan and Derek to him. Like, they're from Flesh and Pod, and it's the only podcast that you listen to on a weekly basis. And I'm like sitting there right there. And I just walk up and said, only, huh? And I just and I gotta say, it felt good to get a little laugh out of James. Honestly, I'm very thankful for that moment, as disappointing as it was. It was nice to get the laugh out of him.
All right, so I'm gonna paint myself into a further little corner here, mainly because I can't win, because I listen to Flush and Pod, and on the weekly, they're constantly ragging on me and slandering me and dragging me through the mud. So I'm going to further dig my way into this hole by saying I didn't need to introduce you because you're already so well known and popular that I needed to give them, throw them a bone and be like, hey, have you met my friends Logan Peterson and Diet Tannen? That's just wanted to make sure that you guys have met, because I can't believe it's not Tannen is, always out there Eeyoring it up about how he is so forgettable. But you, on the other hand, you're a tour de force.
Yeah, that's why, what? Keep it coming. I'm enjoying this part. It's actually my favorite segment of your show. Make Tommy feel good. Actually, I'll drop some. I'll dig myself into a corner. And I said this on other podcasts as well. I don't actively listen to a lot of podcasts in Flesh and Blood, right? Because I'm thinking about the game already all the time, and I'm doing content. And we're going to get to some of that. I think we're going to talk about what it's like to be a content creator and how it can affect your life. Sometimes what I need to listen to is something that's not Flesh and Blood, so that I can stay fresh and buds for my own podcast and just like be able to view the game in my own like lens, which is I find it helpful.
It is, and
Yeah.
like I like you, I'm the same way. And the reason why I listen to Derek and Logan is not because they're providing me with the most in-depth insight into the world of Flesh and Blood.
Really?
It's because of their idiocy and their combined, they are less than the sum of their parts. Like, do you understand? Like, they come together and create more disruption within my brain synapses. So I go to them because it's like being at the bar with them and listening to their stupidities sort of collide into one another. Whereas when I'm listening to actual podcasts, part of it is also I don't listen to a lot of Flesh and Blood podcasts because I don't want to inadvertently take somebody's idea or piggyback a discussion that somebody had last week. So I literally just isolate myself from a lot of it, partially because I don't have time, but also because I don't want to be the guy who's like, there was like that one week where Brian Gottlieb was on like 42 podcasts, and I had asked him to be on the podcast like 2 months before for that particular week. And then it just so happened that he was on so many. And I felt like, like I not that, I don't have a monopoly over this by any means. That's not what it is. It's just merely like I like to go in with a fresh mind so that I don't sort of dissuade myself from having a particular episode. Do you ever get that kind of thing? Like, does it ever bother you when in this space?
Oh yeah. Well, I'll tell you what, Flake, and not, I don't want you to take this in any kind of way, but there have been multiple times since we both have a very guest focused podcast, in this realm. And I think, we both do it in our own way, but there have been times when I had a guest lined up for the week and I saw that you were having them on. So I pushed the podcast.
Really?
Because I care about programming, because I don't want to take listeners from you, and I don't want to take, I don't want you to take listeners from me, obviously. I think it doesn't do any good if everybody's listening to the same thing. I think, and we're all doing it differently, but it's still one person. So I want to give them their time to shine on my show and their time to shine on your show. And, who it's like Seinfeld, right? Who was watching anything else during that time, or during that time slot, right? And well, when it was live, obviously, but so that's kind of like how I approach it. And because I feel like I have the ability to be a little bit more flexible than you, because you work with 983. I'm doing this totally just, whatever, just throw it out there. So that's how I approach it, because I think programming is important, because, when I listen to podcasts and if the same guest shows up on multiple, I'm like, well, how many times can I listen to something similar? So I keep that in mind.
Well, I appreciate it. I didn't know that I had that kind of, backhanded influence on your.
Only you. It's
well,
only you.
You know what that means? That means you can't have yourself on the podcast this week.
Oh my God. Well, I won't be telling many stories on the podcast this week. We have I let someone else have full reign of the conversation.
I like it.
So.
Well, this is you're the guest, so this is your time to shine, and you're such a great host of your own program, which is the Fresh and Buds podcast, which is a lot of fun. And the reason why that I brought you on is part of it is, I mean, let's be real. Current events and such in Flesh and Blood right now are kind of stagnant. There's not a whole lot going on. We're moving into RTN season. We're a couple weeks removed from Pro Tour. We're several months removed from Nationals and all that other stuff. So I like to kind of kick the tires on certain topics that are evergreen, that are always of note. And the one that I wanted to discuss and that I immediately went to you about was mental health, because for those who have listened to the show, you already know that my first meeting in person with Tommy was in Philadelphia at the Battle Hardened Philadelphia at that casino. It was me, you, and Nick Bolas. And when we were going to meet Nick Bolas in the gambling room, as it were, at the casino, you kind of pulled me aside and told me, hey, I know that you're going through some rough stuff, and I just want you to know that even though we're still kind of fresh as friends, as it were, that whatever you need, whatever it is, no judgment, no nothing, all confidential. I'm here for you. And that really meant a lot, because I hadn't been disarmed that way by somebody in a long time, in terms of especially having just met them, because and you experience this as well, and that's what we're going to talk about in this episode is mental health, especially within the realm of card gaming. But I want to frame this within the aspect of you and I are to a degree public personas within the game. We create content, people know who we are, and with that comes certain responsibilities, or at least pressures to always be entertaining, to always be on, as it were. And for 99% of those times, that what you see is and what you get is who I am. But there is 1% of the time where I'll be walking around where all I want to do is hide in my room and, and cry, or hide in my room, put on Seinfeld reruns or whatever, and just forget about life. But you can't, because there's going to be people coming up to you, talking to you, wanting to tell you their stories. Do you find that it can be like, have you ever had those difficulties where somebody comes to talk to you, or you're at a public event and you have to essentially display the approachable, the approachable Tommy? Like, have you ever felt obliged to hide that kind of struggle that you're going through?
Uh, I will say that the public sphere has never been something that I really struggled with, right? I've always struggled with the aloneness of posting, and just and getting in your head about, well, how do people think about what I'm saying, and what I'm putting out, and is this good enough for whoever is listening? Is it good? I mean, is it good enough for LSS? Like, because I there definitely has come, like, with the territory of content creation, a lot of care for this game. So I think there was a lot of that for myself. So in the public realm, I feel like I thrive, right? Because I get to actually see people, right? And I get to actually see them actually happy, maybe, to even see me, which is always a nice validation. But I think there was a time, I don't remember exactly when, but I reached out to you. And I don't know if you knew how hard of a time I was having. So I just reached out to you on Discord, and I was honestly probably I just felt at the lowest of the low in this content creation journey that I've kind of embarked on here. And I felt so alone in everything, and I felt like, am I worthy enough for this, or am I worthy enough for people listening? Are they listening for the right reasons? Are am I think I asked you, do you think that I am respected, right? And I think I felt, or at least my mind was telling me, that you are just the silly guy, right, in this game, right? You don't really have any stake. I think that was like how I thought people were viewing me, and that really got me to the lowest of the low, and it creeps in still, right? No matter what. Like, sometimes I'm like, I don't know if this is right, or if like people even like, is this changing anything? Is this like, is my style of podcasting what people want to listen to? Does LSS care about that kind of stuff? All that stuff. So I have gotten that low, and it's always when I feel isolated, right? And I've worked hard to try to switch that around, right? I've initially was hesitant to bring people into my kind of, like, the Fresh and Buds universe, right? Or whatever it is. And since then I've brought in my friend Gary, who does the Bud Rush Bellow with me. And then I brought in Greg, aka Darth Prentice, to produce. And now we have just a group chat on Discord called the Fresh Mafia, where we talk about everything, but we talk about content, and then I bounce ideas on them. I also come to them when maybe something's bothering me, and they either talk me off a ledge, or I jump. Either way, but but it's definitely been helpful. So that's kind of been my mental health journey in the content creation sphere. Now, a lot of what Fresh and Buds is kind of stemmed from other issues I had with card games in general, in terms of mental health. But it's all coming around, I think. But
It's a journey. I've met Mr. Viz, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, and your boy Darth Prentice, who has been an exceptional friend in terms of helping me just haphazardly and saying, hey, tossing me advice or giving me pointers here and there. So they've been incredible to me, and I don't even have that intimate a relationship with them as you do. So having them on your side again, creating this. It's funny you mentioned the Fresh and Buds Mafia, because I I have been on this extensive kick of watching documentary series, like YouTube videos about mafia, um like the families, and Sammy the Bull Gravano and all these guys and whatnot, and just listening to their interviews and the glamorous slash non-glamorous life of the mafia. So when you mentioned the mafia, I was like, how do I get in?
Oh yeah, I mean, well, it's you got to do something first,
Yeah,
but we'll talk about that off air. But
yeah,
I don't want to glorify the mafia, but
it's pretty
one
rad.
it's pretty rad. But
Minus all the
one thing,
murder and crime and stuff, but like, let's be real, it was pretty damn rad to.
but one thing I've always liked, and that's why I call it the Fresh Mafia, whether they know it or not, is there's one thing I've always taken from mafias in the media and documentaries, etc., is like the idea of family, right? And kind of like you take care of your own, there's a certain amount of loyalty and trust, and if you mess with one of us, you get smacked. But no, we don't do that part. But it's very much out of the kind of family, take care of each other, loyalty, trust, which is huge, and it's very helpful.
Well, we'll dig into the content creation aspect of mental health and such, because we did get questions surrounding that, and we are going to get into the aspects of playing and the mental health challenges that sort of align with that. But the most important thing I want to discuss right now is, because we're both knee deep in this, is the content creation world within anything, frankly, but specifically card games, and even more honed down, which is Flesh and Blood. And that is basically, content creation is such it's such a demanding thing, because what people might not see is all the strings being pulled behind the scenes in order to just get a video out. A 1 hour video with moving parts to it is probably about a 10-hour investment, between idea, recording, editing, polishing, advertisement, whatever. It's a 10-hour investment of your life to produce one 1 hour video. And what I think that a lot of people don't necessarily understand is how taxing that is, and the absolute peaks and valleys you go through from, month to month, week to week, video to video that you put out about, what the hell am I doing? Why am I doing this? And when you wake up not wanting to do something, and then having the struggle of saying, well, shit, it's, for instance, we're recording this on Tuesday. I record this all the time on Tuesdays where possible. And it comes out on Patreon on Wednesday and everywhere else on Thursday. And whether I want to talk about something or not, I am in this chair with this microphone right up to my mouth, and I need to start producing stuff. Those stresses and those pressures don't go away. It's this constant thing, because the challenge is not just about creating content that people like. It's about sustaining it and then maintaining relevancy. And I want to know about your journey. And you mentioned that you sent me that message, and I do remember that message vividly, because it was the first time I was able to give back to you what you gave to me, that solace, that reassurance, because it was, and I want to be very open and candid about this to everybody, because these are difficult topics to talk about. And I know a lot of people out there who might be listening to this might be struggling with similar, hurdles that they can't clear. But us talking about it, I hope, gives people the confidence to know that it's okay to talk about these things. So when you came to me and you said your issue was respect, do you feel like that is something that you continue to struggle with? Is it something that you think you've tackled? What other issues do you regularly, or let's say from the get-go, the first struggles that you had as a content creator, was respect part of it, or were there other factors when you were getting into this?
I think it was respect was kind of came later, right? Kind of like as I started to gain some momentum in with the podcast, but I think initially I had issues with, well, am I smart enough for this, right? Because Flesh and Blood and trading card games in general are very, they're very brain focused, right? You have to be super smart to be very good at this, and you have to have a certain amount of intelligence to talk about it, I think. And I struggled with that, right? I put it out into the world, and like a lot of the first couple months of the podcast was just kind of putting it out there, Reddit, etc. And I would get some nasty comments and stuff like that, and I tried to take them in stride, but you can only do that so much, right? And uh, it certainly bothered me, and I remember the anxiety in the first couple months of doing the podcast every time I'd click publish, right? I remember just people are going to listen to this and they're going to think I'm an idiot. And maybe I am, I mean, like I'm not writing that part off, but like that was like a huge thing for me. But as I started to, gain followers, listeners, and then started the Discord and I mean, Copy Cody, who's a great, community member of Flesh and Blood in general and just an awesome bud. I created the Discord, and then like a day later he like joined. I had never posted about it, and he just kind of checked out my link tree or whatever, and he's like, hey, I'm here. I'm like, hey, you are here, what's up, how's it going? Like, and that was something very helpful. But as that kind of momentum kind of came, I felt this need to kind of get bigger and bigger guests or whatever, and also just like get this respect in the content creator game, because it felt like an uphill battle for myself. And maybe I created that in my mind or not, but I soon learned, right? I had some negative negative kind of
Feedback?
things happen.
Okay.
Not even feedback. It was negative experiences doing the podcast, because you have a plethora of guests and you don't really know what you're walking into with a lot of them when you first start out, and I hadn't been going. I'd been to like maybe one huge event, and I hadn't really been networking as much as I try to do now. And I just had some negative experiences there, and that would really bother me, because then it started to remove myself from why I started doing the podcast, right? Because the reason I started doing the podcast is like, well, I'm starting this new game. A lot of my friends that I played other games with are not interested, or they're too busy with life. I'm Tommy Fresh. I want some buds. Let's create them. Let's have that, right? And then all of a sudden it started to feel like I wasn't making friends. I was just giving a platform, or maybe it just wasn't something that they were interested in doing. So as I kind of learned about that side of it, I realized, okay, well, I'm taking a step back. I'm not just going for whoever, right? I'm going for people that I feel have I would have a good connection with them, or I have a good connection. So I have a lot of repeat guests and et cetera. That's why you've been on many times. We have a great connection. And I think that really helped, right? Because there were a couple times when I finished recording, said my goodbyes on the Discord call, and just felt kind of empty, right? And that was tough. And I don't know if you felt that.
Are you saying empty in the sense that like the guest is over, but it felt very transactional? Like you're using this as a platform for your ideas. I'm using your, current relevance or whatever to push my own agenda.
Yeah, it felt like it felt if you're familiar with Beast Mode, the running back from Seattle Seahawks,
Marshawn Lynch.
Marshawn Lynch, who famously did not want to talk to the media, and then he started getting fined. So he just started talking to the media. I'm just here so they don't get fined, right? Yeah, it felt a little bit like that sometimes. And no hate or disrespect to any of those people. You know, they got asked to be on a podcast.
No,
They said yes,
Marshawn Lynch specifically.
yeah. No, he's
And if
pretty
he has
good.
a problem with it, he could come on this podcast and tell me to my face.
That would be a big get, man.
That would be a huge get. Yeah. I'm willing to just go. I should spend the final like 2 minutes of every episode just rattling off names and telling them to go fuck themselves. Aaron Judge,
one will hear it.
Yeah, Aaron Judge, you're a crappy person. Serena Williams, Serena steroids. I don't know.
Come on and debate me. You
Yeah.
know, like it would be one of those.
Yeah.
people.
I have a feeling that the first person to respond would be like Ben Shapiro or something.
Oh,
Yeah, like
man.
completely out of left field. And I'd be like, yeah, get out of here.
I didn't even say you, man.
Yeah, nobody cares about you. Get out of here. Yeah.
But yeah, so that was something that was a real struggle, you know, and I think the struggle was it felt like I was not being my authentic self and what I was set out to do. And I think that's a huge thing that people can take from this conversation with content creation if you're an aspiring one or one that is doing it now. And I'm sure there's a ton. I talk to them all the time. Is when things get you down, think about, well, why are you doing it? Right? Because what's the point if not, right? If you're not doing it for the same reasons you set out to do it, what's going on, right? You know, did something change? Are you abandoning that? Are you even having fun, right? Because a lot what you just said earlier about kind of waking up, be like, oh God, I don't want to do this. You know, I felt that, right? And a lot of times when I feel like I don't want to do this podcast today, I'm very fortunate that, you know, I'll hop on and automatically just feel a lot better once I start doing it, because I try to curate a guest that I'm going to, the vibes are going to be really great. Right. And I think that's what I want people to listen to. And yeah.
That's a good sign that you're doing it the right way, because even, you know, the greatest things that you enjoy in the world, like for instance, blue cheese for yourself, right? Like
Yes.
there are times where you're like, do I really want to go get it? And and like, do I want to get up, or I'm out of it? Do I want to go to the store to buy it? But once you have it and you're enjoying, you're like, yeah, this is the right decision. It's a good feeling. That's a conversation I've had dozens of times with people when they want to get into the space. And what I tell them, I said, are you ready to work for no return? And when I say no return, I legitimately mean, you know, possibly no views, easily no money at all. No,
It's negative money, just so you know.
Yeah, it's absolutely negative money, because like this microphone, this setup, this, you know, whatever, you're paying out the wazoo. So you better damn well like what you do. And the mental health aspect for me when it came to this content creation was actually, it might be a different story for myself, because I left. I kind of just 180'd my life. I had this really cushy, awesome, well-paying, great benefits, see the world, you know, you'll have tons of respect, people like what you do kind of job. I worked at an airline. I was their social media manager. I was, you know, a few years away from making six figures and being awesome. And I just woke up every day just saying, I cannot do this. It started to show, because I started to go in later and later and leave earlier and earlier. I started to be a lot more candid with how I approach things, which it was the George effect, because, you know, like the whole, I'm going to do the opposite, and it still worked out. Like I was telling people, like, I told the president of the airline, that the food that he had selected for like their signature class or their business class sucked. Like I was just, and he's like, you know, you're the first person to tell me that. Why does it suck? And I would just say, I'm like, this is garbage and this is bad. And I'm like, whatever. And I'm like, these things are good. These things are bad. And they went back and changed some of them, because, yeah, but it was just such a fun, it was such a weird thing. And then I went to making no money, struggling, but waking up recording and feeling like an absolute, like I was in the right spot. And when it comes to content creation, a lot of people are going to struggle. And the most devious and devastating things are metrics. And
Mhm.
I want to dig into this because this is the most piercing aspect of content creation, as well as it bleeding into everything else: advertisement, relationships, just everything you do is based on clicks, likes, views, bullshit like that. Hammer that subscribe button, hit the alert button, blah, blah, blah. Like you hear that all the time. It's almost like a meme now. The reality is, for those who are, dangling their feet into the content creation world or even hesitant to even dip a toe in, it's that if you are not prepared to suffer and fail for an extended period of time for what you claim to love, then it's going to be quite the shake up reality for you. Because even when I was not making headway in various different content creation platforms, for instance, in Gwent, I was their lead broadcaster. I was their lead caster for like 4 years. I was one of the better player. I was like a top player in the world for several years. I was nobody different there than I am here, but there I was just not liked. People did not like who I was or my brand or my style. And I struggled through that. And I came here not because I was like, I need to take the show somewhere else and like try. The objective was not for me to get famous elsewhere.
Mhm.
The objective was for me to just take my passion into a new, fresher, environment, which was flesh and blood. But damn it, like it's the same nasty thing where you're done your stream or you're done your first recording, you go check back on your numbers, and it's like this report card that says, "Nah, you suck, dude. Like you absolutely suck." Where, the first episode that I ever published of Instant Speed with Tannen was, like if it wasn't for Tannen Grace doing me a favor because he had just come off of doing the first calling in Vegas, talking to him about it. If I didn't have him to sort of get my name at least legitimized, and then if James hadn't jumped on and sort of legitimized the show in that regard, like those are incredibly different lives I might have lived, because the metrics would have been so bad. But the problem is that if you're not prepared to live and suffer through that growing pain, then you're not just battling viewership, you're battling the mental health aspect of a tangible, quantifiable aspect of your failure or your perceived failure.
Yeah.
And how did you deal with, or how do you deal with the metrics boogeyman?
The metrics can be tough, right? Because when it comes to certain things in the content creation game, like whether it's LSS kind of being like, "Hey, here's some stuff for you," and it makes sense. It's totally a business decision, right? Because you have you have to look at your return on investment, right? As a company, when you kind of like look at a creator that's doing stuff for you for free, but is but like you have to keep that in mind. So it's tough. Like I want the numbers to be good, and I used to really harp on that, right? Like, man, how do I do this? How do I, like, what should I do to kind of bump this up? And I actively try to work on things, but the one thing that I kind of just created this idea in my head, and basically I always try to tell myself, if there's an episode that maybe doesn't do so well, I say, I do not have to be the biggest podcast. I just have to be the best, right? So I have to put out my best product, whatever that is. And you know what? If people like it or don't like it, I don't care, because that's what I felt was the best thing. I have episodes that I think that I've had the most important conversations that I've ever had in this game that maybe don't have as many views as maybe something else, like a set review or something like that, right? So, but I find myself being more angry, like, listen to the good one, like
Yeah.
listen to that one, like we're talking about real shit, and like that's something that that I find. But the metrics are so tough, right? Because I don't know, I think if you work on your quality and you work on your kind of what I said before about doing what you are passionate about, those metrics will come eventually, right? You have to be prepared to just not get them. And, but people recognize authenticity, right? People can tell when you're not into it. They really can. And, I, and I've had guests where people were like, I could tell that they didn't want to be there. And I said, me too. But yeah, and it was Flake. No, I'm kidding. but, but there are, yeah, and to relate it back to you, right? We've been friends for quite some time now, and I try to support you in everything you do. But I remember when we first started, garnering this relationship, you were still streaming Gwent, right? And I vividly remember, popping into your stream saying, "Hey," and I'll be honest with you, Matt, you did not look like you were having fun, right?
I wasn't.
Yeah, and that's a tough watch for me, and I watched because you're my friend, but I think I think other people could tell as well, right? And that's important, and obviously I love that you do that anymore. I popped into your Talishar streams, and you are having way more fun, and it's a lot more fun to watch. And I think that is it. It just you don't even realize, right? If you're just doing something because you feel like you need to, it shows. So I think that's like the best way to tackle the metrics thing, because it really does not matter what you do, it's how you do it, I think.
One thing that that's so easy to pick out when it comes to content creation is when somebody isn't themselves, when somebody's playing a role. And that's totally fine for a small percentage of it, because you can rest assured that somebody like Dr. Disrespect or whatever isn't that guy, when the cameras are off, when he's playing a role, and that has worked out for them. It's a great tool to be, but you're on stage. It's you have a call time, you go up there, you put on your costume, and you play your role, and it's all improv, and it's crazy, and you get your whole shtick. The issue is when somebody is playing a role that you can immediately identify is not their thing, that they are doing what people think they want to see. They're emulating other successes, completely negating the fact that those people's successes, whether they're playing a role or not, it's comes from something that is naturally within them that they want to bring out. Because, and I'll be completely honest about this, I'm not creative or dedicated enough to play a role or whatever. There's a fun little factoid about Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, which is like one of my all-time favorite TV shows. When they were doing the show, or when they were casting and developing the show, Will Smith, whose character is also named Will Smith, actively declined to change the name or create another character. Like they were the original character's name was something else. It wasn't Will Smith. And what he said was, I want my character's name to be Will Smith because I'm going to be identified with this, and I don't want to have to deal with that. Whereas Alfonso Ribeiro, who played Carlton, probably half people call him Carlton or Alfonso. And so he had the foresight to figure that out. I was like, I don't want to have to deal with this all the time, playing a role or doing whatever. And I actually had this conversation slightly with like the professor. The professor, it plays a slightly exaggerated version of himself because he's playing the role of like the headmaster, whatever. Brian's also one of the, most genuine, nice people. If you if you don't if he senses that you're genuine, he will be genuine in whatever. He doesn't have time for fakeness and whatever. And I'm the same way. And and there are people out there in the community who think that what I want from them is for them to like play a role towards me or to, and it's like, just be yourself. I'm myself. And that I think is something that a lot of people need to realize, is that some of the mental health woes and some of the challenges and the depression and the anxieties and whatnot that people might have when it comes to content creation is because when they go up there, they have to put a mask on and play a role. And the mask that they're putting on is hiding who they truly are. And that can be detrimental mentally to them because, it's like, well, the real me is not good enough. And you're continually perpetuating that idea that I need to be Flake. I can't be Matt DeMarco. But to me, they're the same person. And to you, I've like what I get from you, and the reason why I go to bat for you any day of the week, the reason why I go to bat for people like Logan or Derek or anyone else, Brendan Patrick or whatever, like who they are is very much, it's not a role that they're playing. And I'm wondering if, do you see this too? Because I know that, like, I'm not going to name names or whatever, but I've had, interactions with certain people where I'm like, I know you're doing a little bit here. It's a little bit of a bit or whatever, or you're trying to perpetuate like your persona, and I'm cool with that. And like, you do you, but I'm not, that's not my brand. That's not my thing.
Yeah. Now, I mean, I will say I do love a good bit, right? I love that, but we're in a unique situation with this game, right? As content creators, that well, at least we've been very blessed to be able to go to a lot of events, right? That's where you meet a lot of the people in the community. It's still very small, so like you're meeting not a majority, but like a decent amount of people in the community when you're at these events. Now, the Tommy Fresh that you get on the podcast, maybe my voice changes, right? Like, because I can hear myself, but like the Tommy Fresh that you get on the podcast is the same Tommy Fresh you're going to get across from you at the table, and the same Tommy Fresh that you're going to get, if you come up and say hi. Hell, I can't help it, right? Like it's really bad. Like even I'll meet someone and I start to interview them, right? Like I just find myself like, so where do you come from? Like this, that, blah, 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 and that is, I think it's a good way to be. If you have a character, it's great. Like you said, Dr. Disrespect is a great example. He's not that guy, right? Can't be. But but I do meet, less so in the podcast game, right? I think everybody's been I think podcast is a little bit tough to put on a bit for an hour plus every week, right? Like on a persona. But I've met YouTubers that like, well, you're not anything like you are on your videos. But then I also meet YouTubers like the Tall Timmy, who's the exact same person, right? And that, look at Tall Timmy. I mean, he kicks fucking ass. I love the Tall Timmy because he'll wholesale ass, and he does such a great job. And something that it's just infectious, and maybe the first time you watch a video, you're like, whoa, like who is this Australian guy? But the fact that he is his genuine self is why he's been so successful. So yeah, I definitely feel exactly what you're saying there. But it is important to kind of be yourself and let people see who you are, right? It's who you are is a good thing, right? No matter what. So you should show that.
That's what I want to hammer down. And I'm glad that you nailed it straight away, which was a lot of people suspect that who they are is not good enough. And I think Tommy and I are both in agreement that that is complete bullshit. And I think that people need to literally sit down and think that if your objective is like, identify what your objective is. Is your objective to get famous? In which case, play whatever role anybody wants you to be. It's going to be unfulfilling. You'll get views, you'll get clicks. I always tell people, I'm like, you can make a video tomorrow that gets 1,000 hits. All you need is a Twitter account and a controversial opinion and to pick a fight with somebody. That's all you need. It's not going to garner you anything beyond that. It's a flash in the pan kind of thing. But if that's your goal, if your goal is clicks, you can get that in a heartbeat. It's not that hard.
Mm-hmm.
But what you need to identify is your goal that, or is your goal to make content and to contribute? If that's your goal, then who you are is precisely what you should be giving to people, because anything that you are creating, any personas that you're putting forward are probably going to be either an emulation of something that's already successful or something that is sort of pieced together from other successful formulas that you've seen. But that's not unique. What's unique is who you are. And that's why the Tall Timmy is so successful. That's why you're so successful. That's why, Logan and Charmer and DM Armada and Red Zone Rogue and even, Carolina Alvarado and such. It's because they're just unapologetically who they are, and they present and they form their relationships, and they have their fans and their detractors alike. And I have those too. But at the same time, I can go back to the drawing board, get down to that base foundation level and say, this is all coming from who I am. And I'm not changing that. So you can kind of deviate, but at the root of it, that is not moving. That is going to be that is solidified. You can prune the tree, you can sort of angle it one way or another, but ultimately you're not uprooting who I am. And that's what is going to continue to nourish whatever you're growing out of your community, out of your content. And I just want to make sure that people know that the content that you're producing has to come from a point of passion for the subject matter, as well as fueled by your own personality and your own beliefs, likes, dislikes. That isn't a guaranteed ticket to success, but it's a guaranteed ticket to integrity, and reputation, which I always tell people is the number one currency in this game.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's kind of how I want to hammer down. I don't know if you have any final thoughts on that before we talk about like actual competitive card gaming.
Well, yeah, I mean, the last thought I have to say, and people can take this home with them. I just moved into this where I live now, and I have a yard to maintain. Grass grows, you have to cut it, and guess what? A week later, it grows back, right? You can't help, like you said, you can prune the tree, but it always grows back. You're always who you're going to be. So keep that in mind. So, yeah.
Beauty. We're going to shift gears a little bit, still talking about mental health and how it affects us as card gamers. We're going to move to the actual gameplay element and the competitive aspect of card gaming and how that affects our mental state. I put out a poll, which new segment, new feature, the poll of the week.
Ooh.
Poll of the week.
POTW.
Yeah, the Pado. Pado. I asked, what is your ultimate goal in Flesh and Blood that would leave you satisfied and accomplished? Now, this was meant from a competitive standpoint. I got to learn to better word polls. I actually took an entire 400 level university course about how information and how raw data could be spun and interpreted in different ways. It's basically it was such a fascinating course because they put up all they put up was a pie chart of what people like, and then they're write all your conclusions that you can come from this, and there were 40 that people came up with, which is incredible. And then what the professor did was he's okay, now this conflicts with this and this conflicts with this, so do you see how data is not exactly whatever? Anyway, all this to say that I need to word these a little bit better. But the question was, what is your ultimate goal in Flesh and Blood and that would leave you satisfied and accomplished? 450 respondents. 49% said winning a calling or higher. 31% said winning a PQ or RTN. 9% said winning an armory, and the rest said, I don't really have any goals, which I interpret as I'm just enjoying the game. I don't really care. So I want to put that out there first to preface this conversation, as everybody has different goals. Everybody has a different goal that that they strive for and will feel accomplished with. So I need everybody to understand that winning worlds or even winning an armory might satisfy people in different ways. You know, that's going to my
Yeah.
Tinder profile actually. Uh, so let's talk about mental health in card games, and specifically the fact that you and I are not pros, or maybe I don't know if you've qualified for a pro tour. I've qualified for a pro tour. I didn't play in it. I casted it.
Just Matt.
Yeah, I played in Nats, and I don't think that you and I are anyone's shortlist to top 8 one of these bad boys. But we've been there and we've played in high stakes games. So tell me, Tommy, how does playing competitive card games on the whole, just being amidst this community, amidst and loving this game and playing it for stakes, how does that affect your mental health? And what are the challenges that you face when it comes to this?
So I do feel pretty lucky to kind of have a pretty level head when it comes to competition and tilt and all that. But I understand that a lot of people kind of suffer when it comes to that, right? Actually, my second episode of the Fresh and Buds ever, I dealt with the idea of getting tilted and how I've always kind of taken a look at it, right? Because it's hard. It's easy to get tilted, right? Somebody codex of frailties, or whatever, they pummel you, they had to have it, and then they get you, right? Or from games I played in the past, like, oh, I only drew 2 lands the whole game, and wow, yada 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 yada. It's so easy.
You're talking
about
Candyland.
Yeah, Candyland. Yeah, well, there's a lot of lands in that game. But I did answer your poll here. I said win a PQ and /RTN, because when I top 4 the RTN, I lost in the finals. But so I want to get that win. I want to get that dub. But so I feel like it's so easy to let the wins and losses kind of affect you, right? What do they call it? It's results oriented thinking, right? So it's easy to fall into that trap, and I think it is a trap. Exactly, and maybe this is a great place for Riptide to be competitive, because there's a lot of traps, right? But the trap is, if you lose, you are not good enough. As simple as that, right? That is something people are just automatically think. I lost. I'm not good enough. So on and so forth. The important thing to realize is, Mom, that's not the case, because guess what? Nobody's going undefeated in this game. Maybe a few, right? And at the top of that poll is win a calling, Pro Tour, Worlds, Battle Hardened. There are let's eliminate calling. Let's eliminate Battle Hardens this year, right? There are probably 10 events total calling Pro Tour Worlds, maybe 10 to 20. That's 10 to 20 people. How many people play this game? I'm not sure, but it's more than that. So there are so many opportunities for you to lose, and that is just reality. And I think reality is the biggest thing right now, and just to kind of recognize it. So you have to realize that you are trying your best. And if you realize that you're trying your best and you put in the work, it doesn't go your way. It is a card game. There's variance. It is what it is. But in the end, you did your best. And I know that it sounds very cliche. It's like, as long as you did your best, you're still winning. Yada, yada, yada. And I know you say on your podcast, if you're losing, no, if you're learning, you're not losing. Is that it?
Let me check my notes.
Check your notes real quick.
You're not losing if you're learning.
Yes. Line. No. But so that's that. I mean, that's a great way to look at it, right? So, it's hard for me to say, because I can get tilted, but it lasts for 5 seconds, right? And I'm the first, and I think everyone should strive to do this. And I know not everybody will, but everyone should strive to sit there in the moment and say, that was a great game. You played very well. And, I wish I did some things differently, but that's not your fault. You played a great game, and then move on with your tournament and try better the next time. And look at those games, right? If you focus on learning, like you say, you can't actually focus on the losing. We are simple creatures. We can only really focus on one thing at a time. So just focus on the things that you can control, because you can't control that you just lost. You already lost. It's done, right? Your opponent already reported it. You can't even try to report a win, and you would get probably kicked out of the tournament. But, if you try to, so you need to kind of approach it like that, I believe. And I know it's very hard, and that's the toughest thing. That's where like the kind of mental part comes in, because it is so tough to accept those losses, especially when you already put so much time into it and you put so much work into it. But in a game like Flesh and Blood, and I think Flesh and Blood has been way kinder to this kind of topic than any game I've ever played, because it is so skill intensive, and the hard work that you put in does pay dividends. That somebody's going to be better than you sometimes. That's okay, right? We can't all be Michael Hamilton. We can't all be Michael Fang. Hell, we can't even all be named Michael. So, but it's tough out there. So, I think that's basically how I approach it. Maybe I'm a little bit too laissez-faire, or whatever whatever you say up there. But but
we're not like mere space station. Like we're not like a lunar camp that was just rediscovered. Like, what the hell are you talking about?
Sorry,
We're Canada.
I'm
Jesus Christ.
I've had a lot of great times there. But yeah, that's my take on it.
Well, it's a great outlook, and you're right, because you're winning. Almost 50% of the people in the poll said that 49% said they want to win like a battle hardened or better. That's their ultimate goal. And like you mentioned, when all said and done at the end of the year, there's 40 battle hardens and callings and all the like tournaments. So, and there's going to be repeat winners. There's going to be the Brody Spurlocks, the Michael crew that are going to be out there sweeping stuff up. And that's just the way it goes. But what people need to understand also is that it's okay not to strive for those things. It's okay not to attain them. It's okay to be happy with the process. And I think that that's what I had to come to terms with all kinds of other things that I hope that people can kind of just, can take some of these words we're saying, and maybe it'll help them with the process. Because yeah, losing sucks. And nothing is harder than, like you said, losing in a finals of something where you literally spent like 6 or 7 hours all day grinding, agonizing, racking your brain, and then you get so far, and really, it's like climbing a ladder until you actually get over the top. If you fall, the higher you climb, the harder you're going to fall. And until you actually clear the hurdle and get over the top of it, it's hard to appreciate the view, because you're so focused on the next rung. But sometimes it's okay to say, you know what? I got so high. I got that high up. And in that process, people need to actually stop and enjoy the view, because going 1-0 at a tournament, it's a nice start. But, going 3-0 and then finally 5-1, and oh my God, I'm going to be in the top 8. Stop and enjoy that.
Mm-hmm.
Enjoy that view, and then say, I got a top 8. That's incredible. And then there's a further work to be done. But the reason why I preach you're not losing if you're learning is because if the ultimate goal is to win, you need to improve. And if you want to improve, you need to find value. It's like drawing that all red hand when you want to do some stuff. It's not necessarily about, anybody can pitch 3 blues, dominate a crippling crush. It's easy. That's that's the easy way to do it. But it's when you have bad hands and what you do with the bad hands, and how you can create a chicken salad out of chicken shit in that sense. That's where the losing and learning together. You're not losing if you're learning. It's that improvement. It's that process. And I think that the mental health aspect of competition comes when people think that unless they win it all, then they failed. And that was something I had trouble coming to terms with. I had trouble coming to terms with that in content creation. I have trouble coming to terms with that in competition as well. Losing hurts. It sucks. But if you're not taking away from the process that you have improved, if you can't isolate the areas where you're like, you know what, I may have gotten my ass kicked in this matchup, but there was that one play that they did that I navigated absolutely flawlessly. And I'm glad that I now have that in my pocket, because everybody's going to get, quad intimidated into a 14-point alpha rampage, and there's nothing you can do about it. It's how you deal with the other turns and whatnot. So yeah, man, it's a struggle though. But people need to understand that their goals should never be anyone else's goals but their own, and everybody else's goals should not influence your own goals, because Michael Hamilton's goal is to win worlds. Your role, right now listening to this, might be something like RTN season, top 8 in RTN, maybe win an RTN. Now, Michael Hamilton already knows that he's going to win all the RTNs that he attends, or, most of them. He already has that in his back pocket. He doesn't give a shit about that. He's moved on. But for you, for me, for the person listening, it's not your successes are no more glorious than Michael Hamilton's success of winning worlds, let's say. Because when I won that RTN or that PQ, I forgot what it was, or, when I win a tournament or do whatever, like, I feel just as freaking joyed as I would imagine Michael Hamilton does winning a calling. He's done it multiple times, but when I win something, I'm like, holy crap, this is the most I've accomplished. And it wasn't because of the perseverance and the progress and just the entire, improvement process that to go through there.
Yeah. And I think it's also important to take home that it is a game, and it's one hell of a fun game, right? We're not talking hours on end about this game because it's boring, right? It is fun. Well, Oldham mirrors, whatever, we'll put that off to the side. But, it is a game, and games are meant to be fun. So think about when you were a child, right? Kid on the block or whatever, maybe pick up game of basketball, hockey, football, whatever, baseball, wiffle ball. You lose, right? You lost a lot, right? Just happened in sports. But guess what? I personally was like, well, let's run it back. That's 2 out of 3. Let's go. Like, that is the best way to kind of look at it, right? Because in the end, even if you lose all 3 times, you still had a ton of fun because it is a game, and there's a reason that you're saying, let's run it back, right? There's a reason that, I just recorded with Rachel Stoddard, right? And something, a point that she had said about like an armory shoot she went to, about the game ended super quickly. She got killed. And then they ran back another game because they still had time in the round, right? People aren't doing that for nothing, right? So enjoy the game, right? Have fun. Losing sucks. I don't think anybody's going to argue that, right? Losing is terrible, but guess what? You're gonna get wins too. It's they come, and as long as you learn, you're not gonna lose all the time.
All the time. Yeah, you still might lose.
Yeah, you're probably gonna lose.
You probably lose a little bit, but and that should hopefully give people a little bit of extra solace or confidence. And again, mental health, it's not like a 1-hour podcast show. This is like an ongoing conversation. I figured that while I had you, it'd be a great opportunity now, because you're somebody whom I seek for support. And I hope that, you do the same for me. And that leads to sort of wrapping this up, which is finding that support and seeking out that help. Because there's a lot of people, and I need to give so much love to the amount of people who reach out to me, because, if I'm having a bad day and they just sprout up, it's the most ridiculous thing possible, where you think that everything's going well and everything's lined up. The dominoes are all ready to topple the way you want them to. And suddenly you just wake up and you're just feeling, off, and you feel unaccomplished. You feel like people don't like you. You feel like the video you did was bad. You feel like your job's in jeopardy. You feel like your reputation took a hit. You feel like, it goes on and on and on, and there's no justification to it. There's no rhyme or reason to it. You just literally wake up and say, I think this person hates me, or I think that, and I've had it too. And I've actually had very candid discussions with people like James White, for example, where we've been on a call because, things like this need to get sorted out. And it sounds ridiculous, but the one thing that I need to give so much love to are two people like James who recognize these kinds of things and reach out to address them, but also to the amount of people in the community who send me messages and have offered that support. And I want people out there to understand that it's not easy to talk about this kinds of stuff, because I wasn't prepared necessarily to talk about it to you. You had to come to me and sort of kick the saloon doors open and say, listen, bitch, like, I got you. So I want you to just, if you can, just talk about the importance of that kind of support and just letting it. I don't know how to properly address this, but it's okay to be sad. It's okay to feel off. It's okay to feel bad. It's the way it goes. But it's temporary, and there are people out there who might not be a quick fix, but at the very least, they are willing to meet you where you're at to just sort of lessen the load a little bit, because they might not be able to lift you out of the hole, but they'll happily sit there with you so that you're not alone in the dark. You know what I mean? And that's what I am so grateful for you to have, for someone like you, for example, because you've never told me like, oh, it's going to be okay, or something along those lines. You've never, and that's an easy trap for people to fall into when people seek help for them, is to diminish what they're feeling and to trivialize it. Because nobody who feels like shit wants to hear that their problems are trivial and not real and foolish. That just perpetuates and exacerbates the problem. You don't need to come up with solutions. You just need to come up with presence. And that's something that you have given to me that I think you need to understand how much that means. And I'm hoping that people who listen to this can feel the same with maybe not us, but whoever's out there, that it's okay to feel sad. And there are people out there who just want to be around you if and when you're ready.
Yeah. So, well, basically, I think there's no better way to say it, than I always like. I mean, it's just how it. Sometimes I just talk to myself. Sometimes shit sucks. That's just what it is, right? But just because shit sucks doesn't mean that we're alone, right? And something I want to kind of drill home is when you reach out to someone that maybe you trust and confide in, and might be looking for kind of some comfort or the presence that you're just talking about, is that you have to be willing to meet them where they can help you, right? You can't just be like, take care of me, right? Because guess what? We're all adults, right? And we have a certain amount of work that we have to do for ourselves, but that doesn't mean we have to do it alone, right? And it's important to kind of be like, hey, listen, when I reached out to you, I asked you questions. I just need to hear your answers. I need you to I need to like open up the conversation, right? And you need to actually have conversations with people, right? If you're feeling like this, you can't just, say, hey, I'm sad. No, you have to say like, hey, I'm feeling these things, right? And because we all get sad, but we all get sad for different reasons. And you need to kind of make it easy to understand, right? Because what the person that you're reaching out to is not going through the same thing as you, right? And maybe they never did. But if you explain that to them, it sets them up for success, and yourself for success, and the relationship for success of taking care of each other, right? And I think we have a great relationship, me and you, Matt, because I think we've been able to kind of, and I think we're decent communicators. I think we have to be, but like we've been able to communicate with each other what we're going through and why that is. And I find that that's so important, right? You have to, when you are feeling low and you're feeling all these things, think about what all those things are, right? And then come to someone that might be able to help you, or someone that you trust. And trust is the biggest thing, right? And uh, I'll be honest, I've had plenty of times when I've reached out to people that they did not help, right? And sometimes it will happen. And you can't let that get to you, because guess what? Maybe they're not equipped for it. Maybe they're going through their own thing and they just really can't give you what you need right now, right? Speaking totally openly, I was married once, and we had a lot of issues, and we are no longer married. And the biggest thing was I was not equipped to help her with the things that she was going through, and she was not equipped to help me with the things that I'm going through. So sometimes that happens. Obviously, it's a little bit sucks a little bit more when you're married to the person, but the nice thing about friends is just move on to the next one. But and not to say that the friend that wasn't equipped isn't a good friend. They just don't have it, right? Like, right? They don't have to make a flesh and blood reference here. They don't have the armor left to help with the break point. Just is what it is. What can you do? Move on to the next opponent, right? And I think that that's so important, and that you should feel comfortable reaching out. And it's a very vulnerable thing to do. And I think that most people appreciate vulnerability, whether they know how to deal with it or not. They appreciate it. And don't get mad at someone if they can't, right? Because it's not their fault. You're going through your own thing. You need to find it as yourself. And I think it's tough, because it can be so easy to be like, not talk to anyone, right? And just kind of live in that sorrow and that kind of depression. And I think a lot of people do that, but I think we're very blessed to be in this community, flesh and blood community, which is still very small, as I said before, but it's also very tight knit. And I think that we raise each other up a lot more than you might realize on a daily basis. And there's a lot of great communities, whether it's instant speed Discord. I think if anybody said anything in your Discord, people would be first to jump on the train to help raise someone up. And the same thing happens in the Buds Discord and tons of other. Maybe stay away from the purple Discord. I don't know what goes on there, but it seems like the Wild West sometimes. But that being said, no, the community is great, and we're very lucky. And I think when you're feeling those things, just remind yourself, right? You're not alone, right? If you're listening to Instant Speed Podcast, you are in this community, right? And that's a community. Community is everything, right? You might be at home in your small town or whatever, and just feel like, or a city, and feel like you have nobody around you. But guess what? The marvels of modern science and technology. Flake is in Canada and I'm in New Jersey, and we are chatting about this stuff on Discord right now. So the channels are there. Take advantage of them, whether it's work sucked today or I feel like this is the worst day of my life, right? It doesn't matter. Work sucks, and then also life sucks. So sometimes having other people validate that is all you need.
I hear you. I hear you. And just so people know, it's not weakness to ask for help. Nobody gets style points for doing it alone. You don't get any extra, any extra respect or dap or any of that other nonsense by trying to get through things alone. That's one thing that I had to come to terms with. Was at a certain point, I just had to be like, you know what? I don't know, man, and I don't want to find out, as it was. So you look for other people. One thing I'd have done, and it's not the easiest thing, and it's not the most quick thing, but I have an appointment tomorrow morning with like a therapist, and I made that appointment not when I was feeling like shit. I made that appointment when I was feeling great, because you don't know when you're feeling like shit. You don't want to go down that route and sort of admit to your own faults or whatever. So when I was feeling great, I went and started the process, and that begins tomorrow. And tomorrow, I don't know how I'm gonna feel. I might feel great, and I'll be like, I don't know what the fuck you're talking to me about this morning. Like, feel great. Like, leave me alone. I want to go. I want to go read a book by the lake or something like. But it's important to get ahead of those things for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, so that basically does it for the main show. We've got the Go Again segment. Will you stay for that, Thomas?
I think I will.
All right. Well, why don't you let the rest of the people know? We're talking so much about community. Yours is amazing. So tell us where to get more of Thomas.
You all can continue to find me on Twitter at FreshBudsPod. I keep it light. I keep it fun. I like memes. I like posting about the podcast and any kind of shows and content I'm doing. You're not gonna see any in-depth analysis going on my Twitter, but it is a fun time over there. But the podcast is Fresh and Buds. You can find it on all streaming services and YouTube, which we are fully visual on YouTube now. And we do the Bud Rush Bellow on there, 9:30 Eastern on Wednesdays with Mr. Viz, aka Gary. That is a live podcast. It's very fun, very light and silly. The Buds Discord is a great place to hang out, and we have a whole room that started out as a whole channel called the Tea Room, which I think it's changed now. I think it's called It's Giving Tea. Trying to get the Gen Zs in. No,
I don't know what that is. I know there's a whole like subreddit called like Sips Tea. I have no fucking clue what any of this means.
Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it.
I'm just not worrying about it.
I'm just nodding at the
sounds
tea.
Like a Carolina thing. So I'm just like, no, we're good. Pass.
But it started out as just like people talking about like reality TV. And then it is now just when somebody's having a rough day, they go and post in there, and all the buds jump in and raise that person up. And I think it's really cool and something that's totally happened organically, which was really awesome. So the Buds Discord is great. Check out the Patreon. That's like on my link tree and stuff too. Helps keep the things going over there. And look out for some fun stuff this summer. I'm very excited.
Beautiful. All right. I want to give lots of love to everybody who's helped out. And first off, today we're repping FAM TCG cards. So cheers. Thanks for hooking me up with this shirt. And I have been pumping iron to fill it out because all they had was a large, and it's an American large. So when I'm done with this, I'm probably going to go cover the pool with it or something. Ultimately, though, thank you so much for this, as well as Kayfabe Cards. Go to kayfabecards.com for your singles and your sealed product. To BCW Supplies, use the code ISP10 at bcwsupplies.com. Get 10% off all of your order. Even you can buy a boat there, I've heard, or maybe. Don't take my word for it. And finally, to our patrons, thank you so much for just all the support and everything. And stay tuned for the Go Again segment, a Patreon exclusive. And again, I do want to reiterate, if you're having trouble, if you're feeling alone, if you're feeling sad, if you're just not feeling yourself, you don't have to be there alone. I know it's difficult. I go through it. Tommy goes through it. We all go through it. Just make sure that you take care of yourself. And it's not weakness. It's illness sometimes. So just make sure that you realize that. We'll see you next time. Don't forget, you're not losing if you're learning. We'll catch you next time on ISP.
Well, I work